There are a plethora of rodent Pokemon. While most are basically Pikachu knockoffs, there are a few who are somewhat unique. So, I'm going to be playing through Pokémon Violet using only rodent Pokemon, and I'll include some additional rules to make things more difficult. Before we begin, which is your favorite rodent? My parents named me Rodentia, and that's probably because I bear a striking resemblance to a mouse. I start my journey by saying my farewells. First to my mom, who I suppose I'll miss, but the real tearjerker is leaving this little guy. I'll miss you, Squavette, until I get a replacement squirrel in like 5 minutes. But first, Clavel offers me 3 non-rodent Pokemon, so I decline. Where the rodents at, man? I know you keep the good Pokemon in the back. Nimona tries to get me to catch some pig, but the good book says to not cast your Pokeballs before swine. After several uneventful minutes of me making rodent noises, I eventually attract the real starter of this run, this generation's Pikachu wannabe. But this guy does become fighting type, so that's pretty cool. Welcome to the team, Pikachu. This Arven kid seems fascinated by my dragon, which makes no sense since I have an almighty rodent right here. But I can tell that he is a man of virtue. After all, he's got a squirrel, a member of the Rodentia order. Though I am a little bit jealous, Pikachu proves superior, and then I catch my very own squirrel, who I body shame by naming Fat Cheeks. In my defense, those are some pretty fat cheeks, and I mean that in the most PG way possible. Against Nimona, Pikachu barely manages to defeat her rodent with only 1 HP left. I guess everyone is following my lead, catching their own rodent Pokemon after seeing their enormous power. Before entering the school, I meet up with Penny, the notorious hacker who steals countless riches from the Pokemon League, which wouldn't have happened if they had used Surfshark VPN. Aside from having an awesome name, Surfshark encrypts your internet activity, masking what you do online. This prevents Penny-like hackers from stealing your information. It can also hide your IP address, block ads and malware, and overall increases your security while surfing on the web. It's especially useful if you spend any amount of time on public networks, like at school, a library, or a coffee shop. I think Surfshark said it best when comparing a VPN to wearing pants. They both keep all the important stuff private and secure. You wouldn't walk around without pants, so why browse the internet without a VPN? As if that weren't enough, by masking your information, location, purchasing history, etc., you can even avoid price discrimination and get cheaper hotel rooms, flights, and all sorts of things. The point is, it's a great service for someone who needs an added level of internet security or wants to save money. And let's face it, that's everybody. To give you even more incentive, click on the link in the description or use my coupon code NuzlockeJoe. You'll not only get 83% off, which is pretty great already, but an extra 3 months for free. And you can try it out risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So click on the link, get your awesome deal, and surf the web with confidence. Now the whole school thing is a bust because we don't even learn about Mammalia Rodentia, and they call this place a school. Once I am able to leave, I can head to the Pokemon League to get the 3rd and 4th members of the team, but they still only count as 1. Jumping ahead to the Olive Roll, I try to push it with Miradon and discover a weird backwards walking glitch. Also, Fat Cheeks complains that this game is a waste of food, because that's all she ever thinks about. Now, I could get a few more rodents under the level cap here, but I don't want to catch everyone at once. Fat Cheeks starts off against the Nimble to stockpile, boosting her defenses, and then uses Stuffed Cheeks to eat her Oran Berry, heal a bit extra, and gains a double defense boost. The only held items I'll allow in this run are berries, but that's only for Pokemon with the Cheek Pouch ability. Basically, I want that ability to actually do something. After fully healing, Fat Cheeks eventually takes out the bug with a couple of tackles. They were awfully weak. The Tarantula gets down pretty low, but also falls to several tackles. With those defense boosts, Fat Cheeks survives the Teddiursa's Fury Cutter, responding with a 100 base power spit up that does basically nothing. Well, perfect. I sacrifice her to bring out House of Mouse to Super Fang, and they immediately die too. And now Fury Cutter is much too powerful. My only option here is to use Nuzzle in an attempt to fully paralyze this Teddiursa and break the streak. Which works. Thank goodness. Several weak Thunder Shocks later, and Pikachu wins us the first batch. That was much more difficult than I had anticipated. I thought it was so smart using Cheek Pouch here too. But you know what is smart? Subscribing to my channel, Nuzlocke Joe, the home of all rodent Pokemon. At least for today. Heading directly to the first Titan, the Cloth almost takes Pikachu straight out and only takes a bit of damage with Dig. I was hoping for more than that. Fat Cheeks comes out to deal, again, a bit of damage with several bites, and tries to stuff her cheeks, but it fails because she activates the Oran Berry before getting the defense boost, meaning that she too dies. But Mouse comes out to Super Fang, you'll see that move a lot by the way, and finish off the battle with an echoed voice. Arden's Not Rodent joins us for the second battle, and I mix things up, starting with Mouse. Super Fang doesn't do half of Cloth's HP, like I had hoped, but it still does a decent amount. After several of those hits, my mice fall. Pikachu tries to go for a dig again, but is outsped, and just dies. Great job! Before I can replace him, Shelder takes out the Cloth with a water gun, and the still fainted Mouse pops back up to celebrate our victory. Man, my rodents are not doing a great job here. I try to save this sandwich for my little scavengers, but Miraidon hogs it all. What a jerk. And he's not even doing any fighting either. For the grass gym, I make a small change to the team, getting a brand new squirrel, Small Cheeks. This girl can learn Aerial Ace, and after avoiding the sleep powder, defeats Gracias's first Pokemon. She charms the Smoliv, is immediately crit, of course, but swaps to Mouse. They start using Echoed Voice, a 40 base power special move that doubles every turn. I'm hoping to get it powered up by the time they get to Sudowoodo, but it still does less than half. They do hit the tree twice before getting Trailblazed into oblivion. Small Cheeks is still fast enough to outspeed, but not strong enough to finish the battle, apparently. With that last Trailblaze, there is no way either of my last Pokemon outspeed, but Pikachu does have Quick Attack, bypassing the speed differential. Good thing he lost his Rock type, huh? For once, I didn't lose my whole team here. Just most of them. Now that badge raises the level cap just enough for Pikachu to evolve to Pawmot, and then it's time for a workout montage, because that always works in the movies. I don't quite understand how I, a mere human, am able to outrun the 85 base speed Pawmot, but somehow I manage. Anyway, after walking 500 miles, and then 500 more, Pawmot evolves, standing up a little bit straighter and appending a T to the end of his name. Not a major change, granted, but getting this guy so early is going to be a huge boon to my rodents, especially after learning Revival Blessing and Wild Charge. I'm hoping this new move will one-shot the Bombardier, but alas, it wasn't strong enough. A Quick Attack does finish the job. I still don't understand why this is the only Titan battle you're forced to do back-to-back with no healing, but a combination of Pikachu's Wild Charge, Knackley's Smackdown, and a Quick Attack defeat the bird a second time. Was this the first major battle with no deaths? I told you Pikachu was going to be great now. Before heading to the first Team Star base, I grab a necessary TM and then bust right in. This shouldn't be too difficult, not with my secret weapon. The Pawniard can't even withstand a single low kick. The Revavroom intimidates Pikachu, and I, being an idiot, try to nuzzle before remembering that Stormobiles cannot be afflicted by status conditions. After being Metal Sounded and dealing almost half with low kick, I need to swap to Mouse to avoid being hit with a strong Swift. They manage to use a single Super Fang before succumbing to the scary Snarls. Pikachu comes back out to finish off the car with 2 more low kicks. Once again, that fight actually went decently well. Sorry I had to sacrifice you mice. Right before the third gym, Nimona taunts my rodents with some talk of fruit, but never reveals the goods. Don't you know to never come between a squirrel and food? Pikachu takes out the Rockruff in a couple of hits, as she just spams Double Team. But Pikachu is not fooled by such trickery. She doesn't have any good moves for the Pawmi, but thankfully, that still quadrupedal rodent can't do anything to his evolved form. Last is the Water Duck. Now normally, rodents are scared of birds, and cats, and dogs, and, well, basically everything. But no longer will they hide in the dark. The year of the rat has come. And passed because it was in 2020. Regardless, Fat Cheeks evolves, and is now just Fat. I considered changing her name, but that seemed a little bit too mean. Speaking of mean, let's defeat Iono on her own live stream. Pikachu starts the battle against Watril and defeats the bird with a neutral Wild Charge. The bulky belly bolt falls in 2 digs and barely does anything with a water gun. Because of the Luxio's Intimidate, I swapped to House of Mouse on a Spark. I thought he was going to use Bite, before pivoting back to Pikachu to reset the attack and absorb the Spark. The Luxio then falls in a single dig. Pikachu actually outspeeds the Mismagius and gets an incredible 2-hit arm thrust. Yay! After hitting himself and barely surviving a powerful Hex, I pivot to House of Mouse on a Hex, and then pivot back to Pikachu to get some Charge Beam healing. I could probably try that again, but it might not even work. Pikachu arm thrusts once again, only hits twice, and then falls to a Hex. Well, that was super lame. Small Cheeks comes out to use a Trailblaze, and now she outspeeds as well. Not that it matters, because she hits herself twice in confusion, and then dies. Too bad I couldn't use a Person Berry here. Fat Cheeks also gets confused, but does take out the non-ghost with a single Body Slam. Now, I was going to make some joke here about how much it would hurt for Fat Cheeks to squash you. Yes, it's another fat joke, but apparently, Greedent only weighs 13 pounds. I don't know how she weighs less than a freaking olive, but I guess she does. No more making fun of her for being big boned. The Firestar base is always one of the easiest battles for me, and I'm sure this time will be no different. Because Mella's Torkoal is so slow, I'm hoping that Small Cheek's Electro Ball will be a 2-hit KO. It may not be, but his Flame Wheel certainly is. And we're already down 1 Rodent. House of Mouse, now with 2 kids, tries to start with a Tidy Up, boosting their attack and defense, but Torkoal's Clear Smog disabuses them of that notion. They do take him out in a couple of echoed voices, and that card just murdered a whole mouse family in 1 blow. Pikachu comes out and does manage to hit a single dig that does like a 1/4 of the car's health, before also succumbing to a Wicked Torque. Alright Fat Cheeks, you're my last hope. After a stockpile, let's see how much Body Slam does. Not that much. With her defenses lowered multiple times, and an unlucky crit, Fat Cheeks cannot go the distance. And for the first and last time in the run, my rodents were not strong enough. And to add insult to injury, there's the stupid post-Poké Center crouch. I make some changes to my plan, and it turns out you can go directly back to the Team Star leader if you lose. I'd assumed you would have to redo the entire Star Barrage, but I guess not. The Torkoal portion is basically the same, except I start by paralyzing the Torkoal, hoping that it gets fully paralyzed, which never happens. So Small Cheeks falls, and House of Mouse barely defeats the Fire Turtle, and then they immediately fall to the Rever Room. Here, I decide to use Fat Cheeks to soak up the overheat, and she does a decent amount of damage before she also falls. Pikachu gets screeched, which should be okay, because after 2 digs, I will have this battle won. Unless of course he gets burned, cutting his attack in half. So the last dig does not take out the Starmobile, and I lose again. Yeah, that's right, I lied. The previous wipe was not the last one, but this one will be. Or will it? For the 3rd attempt, I have a secret weapon, but first, I again allow Small Cheeks to fall to the Torkoal, and again, House of Mouse defeats him, but this time at full health. They attempt to force the Starmobile into an Encore, but apparently that doesn't work on these cars either. Too bad. Instead, they just go for a Super Fang before falling. And here is where the change happens. Fat Cheeks avoids an overheat and makes it rain. It's a good thing the rain dampens the damage so much, and that this guy chooses to not use Screech, because I actually ran out of Oran Berries here. But Fat Cheeks does manage to do it. And that was pretty rough. I can't believe she took 3 tries. I guess I need to plan things a little bit better. Which is exactly what I do for the Orthworm fight. Pay attention, because this may be a bit hard to follow. First, Pikachu uses a low kick on turn 1, and then a second low kick on turn 2. Man, that was a difficult battle to plan for. The first round went basically the same way, so I didn't want to show it. It's been a while since I had an encounter, so let's get the most iconic Poké-Rodent ever. Now, there is a pretty big misconception about this guy, one that even I, Nuzlocke Joe, spread in my youth. But let me clear this up once and for all. Pikachu is not based on a Pika. If he were, I couldn't use him here because Pikas belong to the Lagomorpha order. Instead, Atsuko Nishida, the OG designer of Pikachu, says that it was largely based on a squirrel, even though the name Pikachu itself is an onomatopoeia of the sound of thunder, Pika, and chew, the noise a mouse makes. So, history lesson aside, The main point is that Pikachu does belong to the Rodentia, so I get to use him. Actually, let's use Raichu instead. Pikachu kinda sucks, because unlike Ash's Pikachu, mine has no say in the matter. Before facing Kofu, it's time for another biology lesson, but this one will be really quick. Even though the Meryl line is considered the original Pikachu knockoff from Gen 2, and Meryl is in fact the Aqua Mouse Pokemon, Azumarill is an Aqua Rabbit. And just like Pikas, rabbits are lagomorphs, not rodents. So while I technically could use Meryl in this run and just never evolve him, I decide against it, because Meryl is also not that great. For the Kofu battle, I start with my third, but not last, electric rodent, Oldchew. This guy just so happens to learn Nasty Plot, so I use that for the double special attack boost. And then he proceeds to Thunderbolt through Kofu's team. I betcha Pikachu couldn't have done this so easily. Anyway, after a few new TMs and move changes, my rodents and I head straight to Atticus and the Poison Star crew. I again lead with Oldchew. Anticipating a Toxic, he goes with a Nasty Plot, gets poisoned, and one-shots the skunk. The Reveroom survives the hit, and with a Bulldoze and poison damage, it's out with the Oldchew and in with the Pikanu. A little kick finishes off the car. The Muck hits a pretty strong Sludge Wave, but does fall in 2 digs. I'm pretty sure the Starmobile will take him out, but Pikanu survives a Wicked Torque and does deal some damage before falling. House of Mouse comes out to hit with a Super Fang a few times, but they do manage to use Tidy Up, clearing away the toxic spikes, which allows Fat Cheeks to come out without being poisoned, and Earthquake. She is immediately poisoned, actually, but at least it's not toxic. After a few Earthquakes, she is the victor. That went decently well. In this run, Medali is probably my favorite town. Not only do they have these awesome squavets in the gym and a restaurant for my rodents to eat fire-blasted grilled rice balls, but this place clearly caters to rodents. After all, they take up the entirety of the back wall. Unsurprisingly, I start with Pikanu to low kick the Komala. After being yawned, he Volt Switches, which I had hoped would take out the Komala, but House of Mouse comes out to finish the job with a low sweep. I'm not sure why, but half of their bodies are just underground. That's pretty weird. They manage to Super Fang the Dunsparce before being glared and falling. They are replaced by Oldchew, who fails to get the knockout on the first turn, but thankfully the Dunsparce misses, and then it does fall. The Staraptor takes a hit and is fully paralyzed, which is awesome until next turn when a double power facade decimates Oldchew. To finish off the battle, I decide to give Small Cheek some glory because she really gets a chance to knock out anyone. I mean, both her attack and special attack are 45, which is quite horrible, so she doesn't do all that much. After stuffing our faces with some rice balls, Nemona's Lycanroc faces off against Pikanu. He gets quick attacked a few times, but does win that bout with a couple of low kicks. He Volt Switches to avoid the Goomy, swapping places with House of Mouse, because kids obviously know how to play rough. They can be quite aggressive. The Pawmot suffers the same fate. For the Quaquaval, they really should have used Super Fang, but I got into the rhythm of play rough, and I guess temporarily forgot that the duck was going to terastalize and lose its fighting type. Fat Cheeks comes out to body slam the duck. It takes a while, but thanks to a bit of healing, she eventually does win with a whopping 3 HP left. Good thing this duck doesn't have any fighting moves. I don't understand why, but I do appreciate it. For the Rhyme double battle, it would have been cool to win this fight with the OG double Pokemon plus 1 Minun, but they're not in this game, and I'm not even sure if they're rodents or rabbits. Not that it much matters. Pikanu and Fat Cheeks have Crunch and Bite respectively, so they make short work of most of Rhyme's Pokemon. I mean, they are hit several times, and Pikanu actually does fall on the very last turn, but that's only because Fat Cheeks is so ridiculously slow, she always goes last. But hey, a win is still a win, even if I have to sacrifice someone. For the first part of the Iron Treads battle, I try to give House of Mouse a chance with a Water Pulse, but they only get 1 hit before falling. So I do what I should have done at the start, and just close combat this fool with Pikanu. The order is reversed for round 2, because close combat does not do enough, and Pikanu falls to a stomping tantrum. But with a bit of help from Arvin, this time Water Pulse is enough to finish the job. And just look at how cute these guys are. That whole mouse family is adorable. After that battle, even though she's over the level cap, I catch Dedenne, the last rodent in the run. but I can't use her until after the next gym. Speaking of, it's time to fight Nemona again. This girl is the worst. I do decide to mix things up a bit and use Fat Cheeks to Earthquake the Lycanroc. It takes 2 tries because of Sand Attack, but eventually it does work. Once again, House of Mouse comes out on the Sligo, who survives the Play Rough and takes a Water Pulse. The Pawmot also survives Play Rough and paralyzes my mice. I choose to not let them die needlessly and pivot to Pikachu to avoid the Spark, not that he needed the healing, and close combat this imposter. The Duck is last, and after taking a Wild Charge, knocks Pikachu right out of the park. So, once again, the task of defeating this flamboyant bird falls on Fat Cheeks. The gym leader forces us to do some workouts before she'll fight us, and it's not until after we already start that I realize I should have brought Fat Cheeks along. After all, Pikachu is already super fit. Fat Cheeks is the one that needs it. I use the physically fit Pikachu, who has Crunch, but the fairy giraffe is not about to be eaten so easily and responds with a Zen headbutt before falling. Pikachu Volt switches away from Gardevoir and is replaced by Small Cheeks, who takes a ton from Psychic and only uses a single Super Fang. Old Chew does take out the Gardevoir with a Thunderbolt and deals some damage to Espathra, but can't go any farther. Fat Cheeks takes out the bird and could have taken the flower as well if I had given him an Oran Berry instead of a Figgy Berry. You see, Figgy Berries only activate at 25% HP, which Fat Cheeks never got to because she just died. Pikachu, though, does make a return to Crunch one last time. And now, since I can actually use Smolichu, I might as well start with her against Grusha. She gets this special attack boost from Charge Beam and takes a freaking ton from Blizzard. But after an Oran Berry, Cheek Pouch, and Parabolic Charge, she is almost fully healed. It doesn't actually matter though, because Discharge is not strong enough and Beartic has Earthquake. So that was fun. Don't worry though, Smolichu will have another chance later on. For now though, Pikachu just close combats the rest of Grusha's team. He doesn't even break a sweat, though that could be because it's 0 degrees outside. Back on the ground, I decide to give Smolichu another chance in the battle against Ortega. She is a fairy after all. She once again gets the Charge Beam boost, takes a ton from Play Rough, but doesn't heal. Looks like I forgot to replenish her berry stash. At least she does get some healing from Parabolic Charge. For Ortega's next 2 Pokemon, Smolichu gets healed, takes a hit, and heals once again, knocking out first the Wigglytuff and then the Darkspun. Now the Starmobile does more than she can heal, but after 2 Parabolic Charges, I decide to save her life and Volt Switch into Fat Cheeks. She gets confused and hurt a bit, but hits through confusion twice to body slam the car. With real cars and real squirrels, that outcome would probably have been quite a bit different. Jumping ahead to the last Dundozo fight, I again use Smolichu because I'm trying to make up for lost time, but Discharge hits everybody, including Arvin's very own Fat Cheeks. I'm sorry about that, little man. She'll use Parabolic Charge next time instead. But it turns out that move also hits everybody and the Greedent dies. I feel pretty bad about that, causing the death of my own family, but I shouldn't feel too bad because he's magically better in the very next fight, as Smolichu just spams Dazzling Gleam until the Dragonfish is defeated. And during that whole battle, she was almost completely submerged underwater. How in the world was she breathing? Alright, we're so close to the Elite Four now. All that stands in our way is the worst Star Barrage in the entire game. Not because the Pokemon are too tough or anything, it's mostly because it's a straight line, so it takes a long time to defeat all 30 Pokemon. But defeat them I do, and my reward is a battle with Airy. It's a pretty lame prize. Anyway, I send out Small Cheeks, whose only responsibility is to use electric terrain, deal a bit of damage, and then die. She succeeds miraculously. At this HP, Smolichu can now take out the Toxicroak. I didn't want to risk her getting poison jabbed. The Passimian hits pretty hard, but after a berry, Cheek Pouch, and Draining Kiss, it's like it never happened. Annihilape also survives the hit, but heals up Smolichu a good amount. Against Lucario and his Aura Spheres, Smolichu just heals basically all of the damage that he does. And just like that, it's time for the Starmobile. I'm hoping Smolichu can take it until the car shifts into high gear and high horsepowers. Well, that was too bad. For some reason, This car allows Old Chew to use 2 Thunderbolts, all the while shifting into even higher gear. I appreciate the damage he's letting me do, but now this car is quite terrifying. House of Mouse barely misses out on the kill with a play rough, and then they too fall. Alright, Fat Cheeks, can you do it again and squash this car? Apparently she can. That was a close one though. If Aerie had stopped spamming shift gears for a second, I'm sure she would have swept my entire team. Thanks for not doing that. In preparation for the Elite Four, I do several rounds of this ESP training, which is a weird name. That way, I can stock up on a ton of stat boosting berries, like these Landsat berries. I also do a lot of ingredient hunting to make TMs, but let's show the fights already. With a bit of luck, House of Mouse might be able to sweep all of Rika's team. They start with a Tidy Up to get an attack boost, and then take out this fish with a Seed Bomb. For the Camera Up, they use Population Bomb, a move unique to them that can hit up to 10 times, though the Camera Up falls in only 6. They get super lucky and get all 10 hits, knocking out the Donphan right away. Things are going pretty great. Dugtrio falls in 4 hits, but the Clodsire is only hit twice. I guess my luck has run out. Or not, because House of Mouse survives the Earthquake, gets a critical ratio boost from the aforementioned Landsat berry, and proceeds to get 4 critical hits in a row. That was pretty awesome. With Technician, which I don't have, and a Wide Lens, which I also don't have, Population Bomb becomes way more powerful. But it still did a great job here. For Poppy and her steel types, I obviously start with Pikachu, who low kicks the steel elephant. Anticipating a Zen headbutt, he volt switches to Bronzong, and is replaced by House of Mouse, who wins in a couple of crunches. I, unfortunately, need to sack this mice here, but they lower Corviknight's defense, making Body Press do a little bit less damage. I don't know how they do it, but these mice are super lucky. Doesn't stop them from dying though. Smolichu pops out, and immediately pops back in after a Volt Switch. This lets Pikachu come out against the Magnezone, who gets low kicked and only wastes time with a Light Screen. I don't care about that. Last is Tinkaton, but close combat finishes the job. Now you might think that Larry and his flying Pokemon will be a cinch, because I have so many electric rodents, but 3 of his Pokemon are not weak to electric moves? What an inconsiderate guy. Regardless, Smolichu starts with a Charge Beam, and gets a really awesome special attack boost. Tropius survives the next hit, and does Solar Beam before falling to a Parabolic Charge. The Dragon-type Altaria is the perfect opportunity to heal a bit with Draining Kisses. After being confused by the Oricorio, I replace Smolichu with Old Chew to Thunderbolt the Electric Bird. He does the same thing with the Staraptor and the Flamingo, one-shotting them both with Thunderbolts. Look at that! Nobody died here. For Hassel, Smolichu again leads with a Charge Beam, but this time doesn't get the boost. After a Draining Kiss to heal, a second Charge Beam does give her the boost. Not that it matters, because next is Dragalge, who is way too scary and warrants a Volt Switch. Small Cheeks is almost immediately crit, and only gets a single Super Fang, but at this HP, I'm hoping Smolichu's Dazzling Gleam will be strong enough. And it is. The Haxorus and the Flapple take a few Draining Kisses each, but Smolichu is staying relatively healthy with all of that healing. That is, until an Icicle Crash from Baxcalibur takes her right out from full HP. I was so close to the end too. Out comes House of Mouse to Population Bomb, and it does hit 7 times, but was remarkably weak, so they die too. At this point, I decide it's finally time to unveil Pikachu's move, Revival Blessing. She sacrifices herself to bring Smolichu back to life, because I want her to finish what she began. I really underestimated Baxcalibur in this fight, apparently, but now we know that a rodent is a dragon's natural predator. For the champion fight against Geeta, I wanted to lead with House of Mouse, which ends up being a mistake, because they blend into the ground like nobody's business. I didn't realize mice could use camo so well. After an attack boost with Tidy Up and a critical Lumina Crash, a 6-hit Pop Bomb takes out the Espathra. Avalugg is next, tanks the low kick, and squashes my little mice. Well, that's not nice. Old Chew gets payback with a Thunderbolt. King Gambit is far too strong for that, so after one hit, Old Chew Volt Switches into Small Cheeks, who avoids the hit, and then Volt Switches right into Smolichu. But after a single horn leech from Go-Goat, I can tell that this round is not going to go well. So she volt switches to Fat Cheeks, who after a lot of Fire Fangs and lots of horn leeches, eventually takes out the Go-Goat. I decide to sacrifice her against Velusa, that way I can bring out Pikanu, who uses all of his electricity against this psychic fish. That puts him in the perfect position to close combat the Glamora, as soon as she loses her poison type. Well, that went decently well. The post-Elite Four battles begin with Clavel. His Oranguru survives the first crunch and sets up Reflect before falling. Because of that, and the Gyarados' Intimidate, Pikanu volt switches to House of Mouse on an Earthquake. They respond with a Pop Bomb that only hits 3 times, but still survive the Aqua Tail, getting an attack boost from a Lycha Berry. As Gyarados falls, the Reflect wears off, and the Abomasnow then falls in a 9-hit bomb. That was close. I didn't think it was going to make it. The Amoonguss survives the 4-hit Pop Bomb, and Toxic's House of Mouse, which does not bode well. They do use Crunch on the Poltegeist, but then succumb to the poison damage. But they are quickly becoming some of my favorite rodents. I just so happen to have a Surfing Oldchew, so after surviving an Earth Power, the Skeledirge is drowned. That's right, old man. Rodents are the future. And in Penny's future, I see defeat. Not mine, hers of course. Her Umbreon uses a few sidekicks against Smolichu, who heals a bit with Draining Kiss. The Flareon survives the Thunderbolt she throws and one-shots with a Flare Blitz. Okay, once again, it's time for a Surfing Oldchew. The Vaporeon is kind enough to miss a Hydro Pump, so Oldchew remains untainted. And he remains that way by running away from the Leafeon. In his place is Fat Cheeks, who still has Fire Fang and eventually does take out the Grass Fox after having her attack lowered quite a bit. She then proceeds to avoid 2 Thunders and Earthquakes the Jolteon. She is apparently quite limber for a fat girl. And we're already at Sylveon, who Moonblasts Fat Cheeks into oblivion after a pretty weak Earthquake. Because they've been doing such a great job recently, House of Mouse comes out to try a Pop Bomb and proceeds to hit 10 freaking times. I swear, they do not have a wide lens or anything, they're just really lucky. And on that note, suck it, Penny.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
Jumping ahead to Arven, I decide to pit our Fat Cheeks against each other. But the real Fat Cheeks, mine, has an advantage because she is faster and can heal with a berry. Of course, the speed thing is promptly taken care of as she gets immediately paralyzed. Still, the OG Fat Girl does win this rodent fight. Garganacl falls in 2 Earthquakes after throwing around some stones. For the Toedscruel, I meant to use Belch for the first time, but accidentally do Earthquake instead. And Fat Cheeks never gets to correct her mistake. Who do you think I send out next? House of Mouse, of course. Who else? First, they clean up this house, removing the stones, and then proceed to Pop Bomb the Toedscruel, as well as the Scovillain who comes out next. They mix it up with a low kick for the Cloyster, survive a liquidation, and get yet another attack boost thanks to my Lycha Berry. With Mabostiff's Intimidate, I don't expect Pop Bomb to defeat him, and it completely misses. Well, I was right at least. Pikanu comes out after the dead mice to close combat the dog. No surprises there. A few levels up later, and we're on to Nemona for the very last time. It's taken long enough, and she draws this thing out even longer by going on some monologue about how excited she is to battle me. You'd think we hadn't already battled like 5 times this game. Fat Cheek starts with a Swords Dance, but since the Lycanroc gets a critical hit, she never gets a chance to hit anything. Well, that was disappointing. I should have just relied on Pikanu and his close combat. Now this worm might fall to a close combat, but I'm not sure. So Pikanu Volt switches to bring out Small Cheeks on an Earthquake. She sets up Electric Terrain, and then falls to another Earthquake. Oldchew finishes off the worm with a single zap. Dunsparce deals a decent amount of damage, but not enough to take out Oldchew. He then does some surfing, which did a surprising amount to the fake Pikanu, and then falls. So Smolichu finishes him off with a Dazzling Gleam, and then she gets a special attack boost from a Pitaya Berry against the Goodra. I mean, she was also poisoned, but I think that's a fair trade. Last is the Duck, who never stood a chance. I have 3 electric rodents after all. Once Nemona gets over her post-battle depression, we meet up in Area 0. Now this place is alright. I mean, they have a few rodents around, like these Pikanu, But what are they doing mingling with a giraffe and some pollen? Rodents are better than that. Take this Olchu for example. He understands what it means to be superior. You must live a life of solitude. I know the feeling, Olchu. We defeat a couple of unimportant Paradox Pokemon and faced our greatest threat yet, Professor Turo. You see, in the future, there are those who view rodents as nothing more than pests. But I will not stomach that blasphemy. Against Iron Moth, Olchu starts with a nasty plot, as I hope he can survive whatever this bug dishes out. I similarly hope that Surf is enough to one-shot this bug. I was right on both accounts. Now Iron Thorns has Earthquake, but he's also a super fat rock type, so yeah, Grass Knot is all it takes. Iron Jugulus is a flying type, so no surprise there. Iron Hands is not fat enough to fall to a Grass Knot, so Olchu is a goner. But he did such a good job here. Pikachu can finish off that guy with a dig. The Iron Bundle is super speedy and uses a Snowscape to make it snow. I still don't get why they got rid of Hail and replaced it with Snow, but whatevers. After a Volt Switch, I decide to let House of Mouse lead the final charge. After a tidy up, of course. I have no idea why Iron Bundle just spams Snowscape, but he very effectively lets my mice take him down. Here, I need to apologize for my shameful action. I decide at the very last Pokemon to break my own rules and allow House of Mouse to terrastalize. Basically, I just wanted to end this run with one last population bomb, so I needed to take out the Iron Valiant. I hold my breath as the move starts off slowly and ends up hitting 6 times to knock out Turo's last Pokemon. That was a solid end to my rat race. I mean, I guess technically I am forced into another battle with a dragon, but we don't talk about that. After defeating that robot, the 4 of us actual humans start our long journey back home. And as much as I've come to tolerate them, my heart truly belongs to the rodents. We had hard times for sure, but eventually we did it. Before finishing the video, let's do a round of Who's That MVP. This is by far the hardest one I've ever had to decide. It's obviously not Pachirisu. I look forward to no longer using him, but every other rodent contributed to this run. Whether it be Pawmot as my heavy hitter, Greedent as my tank, Raichu with his surprising versatility, Dedenne who kept healing himself, or Mousehold with Population Bomb, they all contributed a great deal. But I've got to go with my starter, Pawmot. Maybe if Dedenne had been on the team a little bit earlier, or if Mousehold could learn Population Bomb sooner, I would have chosen them. But Pikachu was on the team so long, he was never a dead weight, unlike some other electric rodents. For my recurring viewers, if you were wondering why this wasn't a Nuzlocke, I wanted a bit of a change to a normal run, and I was really looking forward to using Revival Blessing. But you probably couldn't tell that because I only used it a single time. Either way, it was a nice break from my normal videos. Let me know if you want more videos like this one. Thanks for watching, and maybe next time you'll think twice before dismissing these wonderful rodents.